Hello, Cinema Movie Recapped here. Today I will show you an erotic thriller movie titled, The Loft. Spoilers alert, watch out and take care. Detective Huggins and Detective Cohagen were interrogating Vincent Stevens, an architect and designer, married to Barbara Stevens. The investigation is about a dead woman found in his loft. The detectives ask him why he was at the loft that morning. He tells them he got a call from Luke, asking him to come to the loft urgently. That Luke walked into the loft like they usually do. He opened the door and was shocked to meet a woman lying on their bed dead. He called Vincent immediately and called the other friends, Chris, Marty, and Philip. While Chris and Marty picked up, Philip didn't. When Vincent saw the body, he asked that the others come by so they could all think of what to do. A year before, Vincent just designed and built a huge building, and all his friends, Chris, Marty, Luke, and Philip came by with their wives, Barbara, Ally, Mimi, and Ellie respectively. However, Philip came with two mistresses. During the party, Chris, a psychiatrist, met and who introduces herself to him as a sister to one of his patients. Anne looks at him romantically. Vincent asks to see his friends and takes them to a loft in the new building. He shows them the room and tells them it would be a great getaway for all of them. A place they could come by with their mistresses without fear of being seen or bills of a hotel. Chris doesn't like the idea, he is reluctant to go for it with them, but the others were cheerful about the idea. The loft is to serve as a getaway from their wives. On that fateful morning, Marty and Chris arrive. Chris was irrational and scared. He asks that they call the police immediately. Since Vincent is the owner of the loft, he didn't want to take the fall, so he preferred they find the victim and settle it without the police. They all suspect Philip because Philip is a drug user, who grew up in a dysfunctional home after the death of his mother. He is Chris's half-brother, but they grew up in different backgrounds. He recently got married to Vicky, the daughter of his rich boss. And since the gangs couldn't find him, he was their best suspect. In the interrogation room, the detective interrogates Chris, who denies coming to that loft the night before nor that day. He claims he was home and wasn't the suspect. The detective asks him about his half-siblings, Philip and Zoe, who both had a terrible upbringing and were addicts. He claims he didn't know the location of his brother. On the wall beside the dead victim was the Latin word. The detectives show Chris the word, asking him to interpret it. He says the Latin word was written by a person who didn't understand the language well, so it couldn't be him. Philip arrives at the loft to meet the others. He denies being at the loft the last night and claims he was with his father-in-law both last night and that morning. At that point, the friends now suspect each other and accuse each other. On Philip's wedding day, he is getting married to Vicky, a daughter of Mr. Fry, who is otherwise called the Man of Steel. During the wedding, Chris sees Anne again. He looked at her in admiration. After the wedding formalities, Philip came to meet his friends and Vincent brings out the keys to the loft. He tells them not to ever give the key to anyone and not to tell anyone about the loft. Chris rejects the key. Vincent tells him he could come for the key anytime he needs it. During that conversation, Marty saw Zoe, Philip's younger sister, and declares Zoe is very pretty. He whines about bringing Zoe to the loft, but Philip instructs that no one should get near his sister. Roaming around the wedding location is Anne. Chris goes to meet her. He comments that her boss must like her so much that he brings her to all his parties. She confesses to him that the city councilman keeps her panties in his pocket in every gathering so he can view her naked. Chris wants to leave her, but she asks him if they could meet at a private place for a drink. Chris goes to Vincent for the key because he wants to meet Anne over there. The friends try to remove the body from the bed as Vincent quickly deduced that they were being set up. To take away any doubt, Vincent asks everyone to bring out their key to the loft so he could confirm that no one gave his key to anyone. Chris didn't have his key. In his defense, he says that holding the key didn't matter because someone switched off the alarm and it would be one of them. They remembered the party they had at Chris's home, where Marty is drunk, and responded to Barabbas' story of her boss who loved his wife and his girlfriend. Marty says her boss is stupid because if he was the one he would have found a place where no one could see him. He talks about the key. To stop him from spilling out completely, one of his friends pushed him off the chair. Ellie asks her husband Luke to follow her to the ladies. They met Philip there taking weeds. Luke is a diabetic patient. He takes his insulin while his wife asks him suspicious questions. She asks if he has any other lady except her and he replies her, promising her he had never cheated on her and he would never do such. Vincent asks the friends if they were in any trouble and if anyone had threatened to set them up. At that point, Chris remembered one of his sexual encounters with Anne in the loft, where he tells her he was falling in love with her and she advises him not to because she is a prostitute who has sex with men for money. In the interrogation room, the detectives ask Marty if his friends were loyal husbands to their wives. He replies positively. Then the detectives ask him why his wife was getting a divorce. He confesses to them that he once had an extramarital affair with a woman who wanted more, and the lady came to his home and spilled it to his wife. The detective wants to know if the affair was at the Loft. He explains that one day, he traveled to San Diego with Chris and Luke. At the bar, a fat lady Dana came by to be friends with them. They also met Mr. Fry there with a lady. Mr. Fry came to them, asks Vincent to meet with him so they could work together on a project. Mr. Fry asks them to keep their story of seeing him with a woman in secret and set a Latin dictum to seal his words. After Mr. Fry left, they see Anna at that bar too with some of her customers. Then Sarah Dickens, the victim, comes by. She is a friend to Dana and she makes a deal with Vincent to see him naked. As Vincent and Sarah strip themselves naked in the pool, Marty is having sex with Dana while Luke watches Vincent naked. Vincent tells the detective that was the first time he met the victim and it was in San Diego. The detective asks him if he met her again, and he denied it. In the loft, Luke comes to Vincent, tells him he knows he knew the girl, and asks him to confess to the friends. The friends receive a call from a person who calls himself a buyer and wants to meet Sarah. Their loft had been listed for sale. Chris remembered the day he went in search of Anna, tells Anna he loves her and he wants to leave his wife for her. That day, he gives Anna his key to show her he had never taken any other girl to the Loft and he never would. The detectives are interrogating Luke, who says he had never brought any lady to the Loft, trying to set him up against his best friend Vincent. The detectives ask him if he was in love with Vincent. He remembered the day he saw Vincent naked and how he felt. It is just like a confession day among the friends in the Loft. Vincent confesses that he brought Sarah to the Loft last night and broke up with her when Sarah told him she wanted more out of their relationship. He says he left her there after he broke up. Philip is angry. He takes the weapon for the murder and throws it at Vincent, who holds it with his hands and returns it to the bed. Vincent says the act might have been done by Philip because they had once caught him when handcuffed a girl to the bed and raped her. That day, Chris gives the girl a huge sum of money to beg her not to report to the police. Marty is tired of the whole back and forth. He advises them to report to the police, and Vincent asks if they wanted to set him up as he reminds Marty of when he came to his house because his wife had left. Luke gives his confession where he tells them he had hidden a camera in their loft and every time anyone says they were coming down, he videos the act. They were all invited party recently. During the party, Vincent goes to Mr. Fry and threatens to expose his act to his wife. At that party, Vicky invites Zoe and Philip to get angry watching men hold his sister. He hit the men and his father-in-law sends him out of the party. Zoe goes to hug Vincent and Sarah sees him with Zoe. She threatened to tell his wife. On her way, Luke stops her and tells her not to. The next day, Sarah meets Vincent at the Loft and breaks up with her, leaving her at the Loft. Vincent passes out. He tells his friends he thinks they had been set up by their wives, but his friends told him they were the ones who set him out. And they had drugged his drink. That morning, Luke came to the Loft and sees Sarah on the bed. She took a lot of drugs and committed suicide, leaving a suicide note for Vincent. Luke calls Marty, Philip, and Chris, and showed them the dead girl. They wanted to call the police but tells them not to. He took them upstairs and shows them the videos of Vincent's activities. He shows them the video of Vincent having sex with Zoe, Philip's sister, Vincent having sex with Anne and paying Anne to seduce Chris and make him take the key to the Loft. He also shows them the video of Vincent having sex with Marty's wife the night he went to beg her for Marty. They decide not to take the fall and set him up. That was why Philip threw the murder weapon at him. They strip him off his clothes and lay him beside the body. They told him their plan, which was to drug him, and they were to tell the police Sarah lured him down, drugged him, and killed herself, writing that fate would unite us in Latin. Vincent tells the police that was what happened, but the detectives didn't believe him because the Loft had only Vincent and Sarah's fingerprints and they saw a DVD of all his acts with his fingerprint on them. His friends set him up completely. The detectives release his friends. Before letting Chris go, the detective tells him Vincent may be hiding something more because the autopsy results show that Sarah didn't die through the overdose, rather, it showed that she was cut in her wrist when she was still alive and the murder weapon had Vincent's fingerprint, so they were suing Vincent for murder. Chris is in shock with what he heard, so he goes to the Loft, searches for the suicide note to no avail, and finds the suicide note in the trash. He calls Luke and tells him he couldn't find the suicide note and the note was the only thing that could prove Sarah's death is suicide. Chris suspects that the note was written by Luke and confronts him. Luke confesses to him that over in San Diego when they met Sarah, he loved Sarah at first instance and he had always watched the video of Sarah's sex with Vincent. That night at the party, he went out to meet Sarah, told her Vincent was a game player and he loved her. He told Sarah he would never hurt her. Sarah replied to him, telling him she had never loved him and she would never love him. He got angry at that statement. On the morning of the crime, He knows Baraba had traveled, so he knew Vincent would be there with Sarah, so he came by. After Vincent broke up with Sarah and left, he entered to comfort her. He drugged her and injected her with a dose of insulin to kill her. Chris tells him that Sarah wasn't dead when he left her, and it was the cleanup done by Philip that killed Sarah. Chris threatens to tell the police everything, so Luke attacks him with a knife. Chris struggles with Luke, takes the knife from him, and tells him it was over. Luke didn't want to take the fall. He decides to jump off the balcony, which he did and died. Sometimes later, Mimi has taken her husband Marty back. The family hangs out with Chris, who had gotten divorced, and shares his children's custody with his wife. Chris leaves the bar early. At the garage he meets Anne. Anne tells him she still had the key to the loft if they could hang out. He replies that Vincent now lives in the loft because that was the only thing his wife left to him after their divorce, and Philip is awaiting trials for murder. Anna tells him she had given up prostitution and had dumped the city councilman. They decide to drink coffee together. Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our channel to get notified when we post the next recap. See you next time.